Welcome into a Clippers Talk Live. I'm Adam Osland. We just did one of these last night. We had the guys from Clipcast on, Chris Wild and Henry Dittman. If you missed that show, check it out. It's in the live section. Today, we got another good guest for you. False alarm earlier. We got our schedules mixed up. It was completely on my end. I am a fool. I gave this man a time slot of 9 p.m. to 12 in the morning. What I meant was 9 a.m., but I put the p.m., screwed everything up. So wires crossed, but we're good now. And joining the show is a very good writer and reporter for ForbeSports. He's an NBA writer and analyst. He is Shane Young. Forever young. I want to be Shane forever young. He thinks the Suns are going to win forever. Shane, how you doing? Thanks for coming on.
I'm doing great. You just took me back to like high or middle school with that song, but I guess that ages me. But man, like I'm doing. Yeah, I think it did. I'm doing great, man. Just excited. I say this every year. I don't know how it crept up on us this quickly. Like it just feels like the Olympics ended yesterday. So yeah. I'm kind of not ready to actually analyze basketball tomorrow. So we'll see.
Some said earlier today, and this was snarky and unkind, but some said when they saw the report that Paul George and Embiid aren't playing the first game, they're like, NBA is back, baby. Here we go. Injuries galore, stars out. It's awful. And we can start with that. I'll get into the Phoenix Suns in a little bit, but I want an outsider's perspective and somebody who's been on board with the Clippers for some time and covering this team and has been a believer in what they had going, but it was always derailed by injuries. The 2-1-3 era is officially over, as I just mentioned. Paul George is in Philly now. From the outside looking in on the current situation with Kawhi Leonard, like, what should the Clippers fans be feeling right now as he's not playing opening night in their brand new arena on Wednesday? And we're talking about an injury that went back to April, and he's still not ready to go, unfortunately.
The first thing that comes to my mind when you ask that question, and when you're talking to people around the Clippers and just in the building the other night, was I think fans should feel at ease with the non-expectations coming in, and that's kind of just what I like. I'm not a Clipper fan, but like that's just what I sense is that for the first time in a long time, it's okay to just play the season out and hopefully be surprised at what happens. In a similar way that 2018-19 year with Shea and like it just seems like that's the vibe that I'm getting. We don't know when Kawhi's coming back or going to debut, I should say. I'm actually like more optimistic that it's not going to be some long-term thing. Like I think he'll play in November. That's just what I'm guessing. I don't think it's going to be like, oh, he's out till 2025. I think anyone that's thinking that just because the Clippers said indefinite, that they don't know that's what it is with the Clippers and Kawhi. That you're not going to get a timetable. I saw someone, Adam, the other day was like, if it was only going to be 4 to 5 weeks, they would have told you. No, that's not the case with this team. Like they're not going to go out and put any type of estimation out there. That's just not how Kawhi rolls. So
yeah,
I think
get that part.
Yeah, I think for me it's just see what you can do, and this is going to be a big Ty Lue year. Like I was telling someone also the other day, like Ty's never had a bad team. When's the last time Ty had a bad team? Right before he walked out the door in Cleveland when LeBron left him in the last minute. So it's going to be a really competitive team. Just temper expectations. Don't expect to go in and win 50 games because you're not going to this year.
You got them currently finishing 11th in the West at 39 wins. How many games is that dependent on Kawhi playing? Because what I like to ask people is if he plays 50 games or if he plays 60 games, what's the Clippers record you can spit out for me? So how did you come up with 39?
Yeah, I think you and I think alike when it comes to that because, last year you were really pushing the Kawhi MVP stuff.
Well, he had the most efficient 30-game stretch in the history of the NBA.
True. It was ridiculous. So to that point, if he's going to play 50, you're going to win 70% of them. That's just what the history says about Kawhi. I'm thinking he plays around 48 games. Like now, whether that I just said I think he'll play in November, but I'm also baking in like more absences than last year. Last year was such an anomaly. It was great to watch. I mean, first time he's ever broke 67 games since 2017, I believe.
Yeah.
It was a long time. So as a Kawhi fan through and through, loved watching it the entire way. I believe that there's going to be more little like 1 to 2 week nicks and bruises, if you will. So when he's out there, they're going to win at a 48 to 50 win pace, I would imagine. Maybe 50 win pace for sure. I just don't think that's going to be a lot.
Yeah, he won't be there often enough for them to get close to actually having 50 wins this season. I think that's very reasonable.
And does James Harden miss anything? So.
Right. That kind of leads me to my next question. How do you think James Harden is going to perform with this heavy of a workload, considering the amount of games, at least to start the season, Kawhi Leonard could be out? And now he's at the age of 35 and trying to run the show. And the Clippers are doing all the right things. They're saying they're going to play him more off the ball. They know it's too taxing. He can't have too high of a usage rating and be playing 40 minutes a night just because they're chasing wins without Kawhi Leonard. But what stat line, I guess, do you expect James Harden to have by the end of this season? And could he be in all-star contention in the Western Conference?
I think he's going to be right on that borderline. So, yeah, definitely contention for all-star. I think when I pick my all-stars, I don't know about you, but I always just look at team record first. And then I kind of go to individual stat lines and how you've been playing on both ends of the floor. So, if the Clippers are like above 500 when that time comes, then I think he'll have a good shot, because what he averaged points, like only averaged 16 points with the Clippers last year. That's going to go up. I'm tired, Adam. I'm tired of hearing about Houston Harden, because that's not realistic anymore. Yeah. He's not that age. Like, we can just get that out of our minds. If they can get Brooklyn Nets James Harden, where it was like 24, 10, and 6, like that's really good, and that would be honestly better than what Paul George was last year for them, impact wise. So I'm hoping James takes more shots. I'm hoping he takes more threes. You know how I feel about more threes. I know how Ty Lue feels about more threes, and I'm hoping he actually has a team that's willing to shoot a lot. I know
there's an emphasis in that area. They also have brought in some guys who are defensive stalwarts that have a mixed track record when it comes to three-point attempts. Terrence Mann can shoot them, but he doesn't take enough of them. Chris Dunn, over his last 88 games, has been above 40% from the outside, but it's not on high volume, and the rest of his career doesn't say he's a great three-point shooter. Outside the playoff run, Derrick Jones Jr. last year shooting 37% from three with the Dallas Mavericks. He was, I think, at 33 or 34% during the regular season, which is one of the higher years for him in that area. So there are a lot of unknowns with guys that they need to space the floor from the outside, but they are trying to play the analytics game, at least on paper, because they know that's one way to bridge the talent gap every night, put up more attempts from the outside, right?
Yeah, that's what you got to do. Like, I'm looking at it now, man, for James Harden to be at 6.8 threes a game last year. Like, I know this seems aggressive, but I would double that. I know he's not going to, but I would you have to get 8, 9. You're James Harden. I think he's going to be second all time if he's not already. He's about to pass Ray Allen.
He is,
right? Yeah. Like, come on, man. Like get him up. And I think Ty is empowering him. Like, he understands. Without Kawhi for a certain amount of time, our offense might be Orlando Magic-esque, like bottom 10, as long as their defense is top 5, 6, 7, which I think it has every indication that it could be.
You think the defense is real based upon roster construction, and also they look pretty darn good on that end in the preseason so far, but they do have the type of players you would expect to lock in on that end. You talk about Coach Lue and how he doesn't have teams that lose or bad teams. He brings in Jeff Van Gundy now, and they have a new system there defensively. Nobody knows exactly what all the principles and tenets are, but it seems to be a much more aggressive attack-first type of defense. They were fouling a little bit more, but they were forcing a ton of turnovers in the preseason. So you are a believer that, to me, they have to be at least a top 8 defense if they want to flirt with staying out of the play-in, which is going to be very hard depending on how many games Kawhi plays. That's like the high end of my expectation, 6. Just staying out of the play-in and getting 6 would probably be a very successful season, but we don't know how many games are going to get out of Kawhi. You do, though, like the defensive personnel.
Oh yeah, the athleticism. Like they can actually afford to gamble now. If you gambled back with the teams they had in the previous era, I guess you could say, even though we're in the same era, so, it sounds weird to say that, but if you gambled with that older squad that they had, like you're going to give up a layup. Like Zoo has to step up and like overcompensate for other people's mistakes. I think now with the athleticism, you have a little bit of margin for error in that regard. You get more steals, get more transition buckets. When I was there for that Mavericks game, I've only been to one of the games so far. Like they looked quick. They looked jumpy, bouncy. Like they're going to get after it. And the more easier buckets you can get, I hate saying easy buckets because it's the NBA. You're not going to get anything easy.
Transition.
But yeah, get out and transition a little bit more, just maybe 5 to 10% more of the time of your possessions, and then that'll work itself out because your half court offense. Last year it was really good. I think they were top 5 most of the year. But again, Kawhi played all the time. He had a long streak of playing there where he didn't miss any games. So I have faith in Harden. Now, as you know, like when Harden got traded there, I thought it was a horrible mistake. I still probably wouldn't have done it, and just because it's me, I wasn't a fan of him. But I think he's a good engine. He's been so good for Zoo, man. Like all these point guards they've had. You just list them off. Every one of them they've had. Russ, John Wall, even Reggie. Like they've all given Zeus something. I think no one has been as good for Zeus as Harden has been.
Was the reasoning behind thinking that was a mistake because it goes back to your philosophy that they never needed a point guard next to Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, and they tried all these different guys? Or is it something against the style of basketball that James Harden plays?
I think it's really nothing against Harden's style. It's more like I didn't think they needed to give up wings or give up any shooting. And I thought Kawhi and Paul could be that. And I thought, the reason you went to get Russell Westbrook was because you thought you needed a point guard. So why do you need to do it again? And
Well, because the front office never wanted to get Russell Westbrook, it seemed like they were forced to because of Paul George. I mean, people thought so then. It was Lawrence Frank at the presser. I remember at that trade deadline, they didn't pick up a guard, and Coach Lou was talking about it. And then Paul George said, hey, go get Russ. But Lawrence was talking about the type of guards they wanted to bring in, and they did not match the criteria that Russell Westbrook did.
Yeah.
How do you feel between those two? Because I am much more in the camp of James Harden being a higher end point guard that can actually lead you to a championship versus the chaotic style of Russ.
Absolutely Harden over Russ in terms of for this team and just in general point blank period. I would really push back on saying he can lead them to it. It can lead anyone. Well, I don't care who it is. He's not leading anyone to a championship.
Okay. Let's say Golden State doesn't have Kevin Durant in 17-18. I mean, I think they might have won it then. Houston might have won it.
That was Houston Harden. And I don't know if we're talking about Houston Harden right now, but yeah, in terms of their history, absolutely.
Okay. So you mentioned Ivica Zubac and what Harden can do for him. Where do you stand on Ivica Zubac and the growth they're going to need from him this season, where a lot of us are saying he needs to be at 15-10, 16-11, somewhere in that range, and he's capable if they actually play through him a little bit more. He's always gotten kind of a rookie treatment, almost like they're treating him like he's still in his first year or 19 or 20 years old. It's like, guys, he's been reliable. He was the best center from 5 to 9 feet out last season, field goal percentage wise. He was better than Jokic in that area. He was at 64%. He was incredible. Best rim protector last season. One of the best defenders in the pick and roll. I think he was second to, it might have been Isaiah Hartenstein.
Did he even get votes for DPOY? Did he even get votes? I don't think so.
Wow. It was talked about at practice just the other day. Coach Lou saying that should be a goal for him to try to win Defensive Player of the Year. Zeus backed that up, said, yeah, that is, of course, something I would love to do at some point in my career. But just him being more of a focal point on offense, I think it's non-negotiable now. There's no option. If you're going to be successful this season, you better play through him some.
Yeah, 7.6 shot attempts per game last year, career high. I'm sorry, that needs to be up to 10. Come on, man. But, the blame is... I think the blame is on. You can't really blame anyone else but the player. Zoo has to be more demanding. He has to be more vocal that he wants that. And he's telling all of us, he's telling the media that he does, but I think he has to also hold his teammates accountable. Hey, give me the ball, speak up in huddles and stuff. I'm not saying he doesn't, but that's what I would be doing. And honestly, I'm hoping that like him trying to be this defensive stalwart even more doesn't lend itself to like, oh, I'm gonna try to block more shots because that's what's flashy. Because like we don't want him getting out of position or getting in foul trouble too much. Like just keep doing what you're doing. Hopefully the media corrects itself and then he starts getting more attention. He's doing everything right on that end of the floor. I remember that Dallas game, he had a couple turnovers, a couple bad plays out of the post, and like I asked Ty like, what are you seeing from him in terms of patience in the post? And Ty cut me off and was like, not good right now. So yeah, that needs to be worked on. Like his decision making out of the post, like when he draws a little bit of gap help, and when he sees the extra defender digging down to him, making better and quicker reads out of that. But that'll come with time, and that only comes with reps, as you know. So hey, what was his post up numbers last year? Maybe 5 or 6 a game. Let's double that. Let's just we're going to play slow anyway because we have James Harden. We're going to play slow to a certain degree in the half court. So hey, let's just give him more post ups and see what happens.
No, I think it was like 3 or 4, but he was very efficient in points per possession in post-ups. They just never got on the ball. And to be fair, it was a different team. They had more high-end Hall of Fame talent. This is his time where they need him more than ever, especially with James Harden at the controls. So you were at Intuit Dome, as you mentioned, for the first ever game played there. Granted, preseason. Wednesday, they opened things up against the Phoenix Suns. More on that in a little bit. You talked with Steve Ballmer. You got the private tour. What did you learn about Steve Ballmer and his vision with this arena? And what were you impressed by most?
I think I can answer both of those with with one thing. The insane, and I don't use that word lightly, insane amount of research that he's willing to do and that his team is willing to conduct before they do anything. And it's all things that you don't even think about. It's things that like that take years of planning that we just found out about it like, when the groundbreaking ceremony in 21, they had already been planning that arena for years. And it's just like, man, he told me that he went to 24 other arenas around the NBA multiple times to try to get good ideas and bad ideas of what not to do. He wouldn't really share what those were, the bad ones, but like it's more about, and Gillian Zucker as well, president of business ops, like going to 100 different venues around the globe, some multiple times too. So that just takes years of planning and traveling, and just figuring out bowl designs, what produces the best sound, but also how can you accomplish both things of comfortability? I'm sure you sat down in the seats, like they're awesome. Like how can you accomplish that, but also make it a small, intimate spot that's not spread out and that it's not bigger than most of these arenas out. When I walk in and it's empty, it looks identical, in my opinion, to Utah's. I don't know if you've been to Utah's, but it's like it's awesome. Like you see the wall, everything. It's so steep. And I can't wait to see how packed or like how it sounds when it's packed, because it wasn't very loud, to no one's fault. It's the preseason. It wasn't very loud that night, but
I think it was at 13,000. It seats just under 1,800.
Yeah. So I think what I learned about Steve is that he doesn't like he goes through all these he jumps through all these hoops and is willing to go the extra mile, but you literally don't know about it and he doesn't want the credit for it. And that's the most impressive thing about him.
For Clippers fans who are a little bit downtrodden right now with the Kawhi news and feeling like we're not a championship team or in that inner circle any longer this season, I always bring up the hope with Steve Ballmer. And if ownership is the biggest advantage in sports, they got, I believe, the best, the guy who will do whatever it takes. Do you feel that is the most encouraging thing you can possibly have right now with your organization, the team you root for, just having talked with him?
Absolutely, because I think there's no possible way you can talk to him as a player, media member, employee, whoever it is. You can't talk to him and say, "Oh, I don't want to work for that guy," or "I don't want to come battle for that guy." I mean, it's kind of wild. I think that he's actually rubbing off on a lot of the other owners around the league too, like Matt Ishbia's in our home market in Phoenix. Like you can just tell that he's cut from the same cloth, maybe not to that degree when it comes to wealthiness, but it's like, he can adopt the same ideologies and same methods. So I think it's a great thing for the NBA, not just the Clippers. But yeah, man, like they're going to be like, it's okay if they're going to be down for a year or two, like, or longer, who cares? Because like as long as he's around, as long as he's the owner and he's showing the same passion, then that's how you get free agents. You have to just remember what happened in the summer of 2019. Like that can happen again, and it will happen again when these visiting teams walk into Intuit Dome and see how they're treated with their locker room and their facilities, their weight training areas. I put this in the story. It's like if you walk in as a visitor and you say, "Man, that's how they treat us," how will they treat you if you play for them? So ownership is the biggest advantage, and it's just you know this. Like the NBA is in a weird spot right now with the CBA that it's hard to do anything. So just because the Clippers have a down year or two, like I wouldn't worry about it. Like they still have every resource possible.
He is Shane Young from ForbeSports. The article is Inside the Intuit Dome, where basketball meets technology and entertainment. What did you think of the technology side with the Halo board, which wasn't fully unleashed yet? It will be on Wednesday.
Yeah, man. Oh, like I don't even know what they could possibly do that's more, but just so impressed because it takes your mind. Like you don't want your mind to be taken away from the game, but you find yourself like even more interested. Like you look up at the stats, you look up at the shot charts. I mean, has there ever been a shot chart on a scoreboard? It's pretty crazy. So it'll be fun. And what I'm really interested to see is like when families go. Like if I take someone to the game, like if you're not that diehard into basketball, there's still stuff to do. I mean, be interactive on the games they play in the third quarter, and win prizes that way. I just think they thought of every little detail you could possibly think of with a Halo board. Can't wait to see what they can do that was different. There were pockets of the Halo board that weren't being used. It was just the blank blue canvas. So yeah, I mean, whenever they showed the media during that tour, I guess in August, like when Terrence Mann's stats and all that came out, like I want to see more of that stuff for sure.
All right, so let's talk about Wednesday night. Clippers taking on the Phoenix Suns in the home opener at Intuit Dome, the arena's first basketball game. And they got a rival in town, a team that has beat them 3 times in the playoffs. Nobody else has done that. Of course, I think the only other team they played 3 times in the playoffs is the Dallas Mavericks, who they're 2-1 against. So this Phoenix Suns team, I think you got them at 53 wins this season and third in the Western Conference. And they are one of those teams where I think there could be a pretty wide variance based upon health, status of some of these older players, where they're at in their career. Can Bradley Beal hold up, play more than 50 games this season? Kevin Durant's what, 35, 36 now?
36.
He's getting up there. And Booker has had a couple of little injuries here and there. Is he still just entering, being at the peak of his powers? Is that where Devin Booker is at in his career?
I think so, because if you look at what the prime ages are in today's NBA, like you would have said like 27 was like the prime back in, let's just say LeBron's early days or maybe Jordan's day. Like once you hit 27, that's your peak. Now, I mean, that you're just getting started in your peak now because careers are longer. And that's why I think like I'm big on a guy like Giannis, who's only like 29 or only like 30. He still has a good runway. He's still in his peak. He's still leveling up and getting better. So I look at Booker. He can become a better 3-point shooter than he already is. He can shoot more. He can definitely be a better playmaker and not turn the ball over as much as he kind of did in certain segments last year. I just think it's all up here, maturity. Like he's not going to get better physically, I don't believe. It's just, hey, can you make better plays in the half court? So I think that's what having a point guard like Tyus Jones or Mike Budenholzer there instead of some of the defensive minded guys he's played with in the past. Like this is the first time, if you think about it, first time he's had like an offensive. I won't call Bud a genius, but every one of his teams has the right shot profile. Like every one of his teams plays fun offensive basketball. So it's the first time he's going to be able to deal with that.
Is that the biggest difference with Coach Bud versus what we saw the 1 year with Frank Vogel, who's more of a defensive guy? Just offensively, they're going to be fully unlocked?
Yes. He's less, Bud is less, like he's less rigid in the offensive sets. Like he wants them to just kind of play free flowing random, but start out with some like systematic principles, but then from there let the basketball find the open guy. And he always talks about like the ball moving faster than the defender. So going to see more ball movement for sure than you did under Vogel. And that's just no knock on Frank. Every coach has their identity. What makes Ty Lue the second best coach in basketball, in my opinion, is that he is good on both ends of the ball, and he has ideas that are proven on both ends of the ball. But I think Bud is, and Bud's in that same elk too. I mean, how many years in a row did Milwaukee have a really good defense? But they also took a lot of threes, and the Suns have been averaging, I believe. I don't know if the last preseason game was counted in this, but they were averaging 46 3-point attempts a game. Last year, they were at like 33, 34. I think it's going to be a big difference. And if it's a big difference, Adam, when your shots are coming from Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Grayson Allen. We're not talking about any of those guys being bad shooters. So more attempts for the good guys. and it should be a better offense.
What are potential drawbacks or blind spots with Coach Bud during the regular season? We know there have been some interesting moves in the postseason. He probably would have been let go if KD's foot wasn't on the line in 2021. But what do you think could be different on the negative side than what we saw from Frank Vogel?
That I don't know if he can get the most out of Yusuf Nurkic.
Not exactly Brook Lopez.
Oh my God! Hey, he's trying to transform into Brook Lopez. He's taking a little bit more threes. He's learning that he can be a better drop coverage center. But at the same time, it's like I think Frank really resonated with Nurk and had him play into his strengths on defense. If there was a coverage that Nurk wasn't comfortable with, he would go to Vogel, and they would kind of work around it, or Frank would just scrap the idea altogether. To me, I don't know if Bud's going to be that way. Like I think Bud wants his centers to play a certain way, and that's it. So I mean, I don't know. This is all just kind of me speculating and guessing how it'll go. But if there's one drawback, it's that Bud. This is going to be a center rotation. I won't just say Nurk. It's also Mason Plumlee. It's also the rookie Oso they got. Like, man, I think that's going to be the weak link of this team. And if they don't hit 53 wins, if they miss my projection, which last year I was only 2 wins away, that's going to be why, because the center rotation is not that good.
Well, in last season, they finished 13th defensively. They weren't bad. Offensively, they were 10th.
And that's not good enough. The 10th is not good enough.
Not for a team with that talent. And that it did make sense. I know some people thought he got a raw deal, but they weren't optimizing their three-headed monster, and you have to do that for them to get to the places they're trying to go. But in going back to Yusuf Nurkic, when they made the trade with DeAndre Ayton, I forget who the writer was, and said they got their defensive backbone here, and everybody kind of spammed him like, Nurkic is not that guy, my dude. Like, I don't know what you're thinking here. And I do think if DeAndre Ayton had the right attitude, skill set wise, he would help this Suns team more, but we haven't seen that happen, and it's been kind of toxic with them in the past. Maybe it was Monty Williams, who knows? But Nurkic, I think last season held offenses within 6 feet of the rim, his opposition to like 54% shooting, which is really good.
He's fine.
Yeah.
He's fine.
I was impressed by him. I didn't know he still could be that much of a deterrent at the rim.
You know what he is, though, this is his best trait. And you've seen this with Zoo in certain games, but this dude is an awesome, capital A, awesome defensive rebounder. Like, that's how the Suns got to 13th. If you look at first shot defense, I would almost guarantee you, I'd bet you any amount of money they were like 20 or maybe 18, 19. But like they just didn't have extra possessions to give away. Like, it was one shot and done for the most part if Nurk was on the floor. And
I
when
think that's like
games,
the opposite of the Clippers, by the way. Like they could get you to miss that shot, but they couldn't get the rebound to close out the possession.
Yeah. I remember I watched a 30, because the reason I thought of Zoo was because last year I was in the building for a 30 rebound Nurkic game. So it's like as long as that holds up, and I don't see any reason why it wouldn't. He lost a little bit of weight. Maybe he can, I don't know, move around, navigate the court a little bit better. So we'll see. But I'm not holding my breath there. I think the more they can try to play small with KD at the 5. I'm sorry, Kevin. Please suck it up. You can do it. Just a few more possessions a game, like 10 more possessions a game is all I'm asking for.
Wait, he's got that Anthony Davis in him. He doesn't want to play center ever.
He doesn't say it. AD says it. KD doesn't say it, but you can tell he's not happy.
Are we going to see him at the 5 Wednesday night in some small ball lineups?
I'm willing to bet. Ooh, it's opening night. I was going to say yes, but I think Bud wants to kind of try out some of the younger guys too. So we'll see. But I would actually bet yes. Maybe if it's a close game, put Durant out there with Tyus, Brad, Devin, and Royce O'Neal. Yeah.
How do Phoenix fans view Mason Plumlee? Because I was a big Plum Dog Millionaire fan, a big Plum fan. But when he came back from that injury he suffered from Julius Randle in New York last season for the Clippers, it seemed like the end of him being a very solid rotational backup big man and borderline starter at times in his career was over. Like, he didn't look right health wise, and he's just so out of position so often. It's not even like his athleticism is that much gone. It's just he falls for every fake. Like, stay down, my guy. What do you guys think you're getting with him?
He wants to kind of maximize this athleticism that he's trying to hold on to. I mean, you can see the age creeping up, and he's like, I have to jump at everything. It's wild. I think here's what they're getting for sure. They're getting a better player than Drew Eubanks. Drew Eubanks last year was one of the worst backup bigs you could ever imagine. The numbers were bad with him on the floor, but and I don't even know where he's at right now, to be honest. I don't know where Eubanks signed, and that just goes to show. But it's going to be better than last year. Now, the thing that irritates me with Mason, you mentioned the defensive positioning. I don't really know what he contributes offensively. Really, I mean, the flashy passing, the being the connector, but it's like every time I watch him play, it's like, okay, who can I go into a DHO with now? Who can I just hand it off to really quick? He's a really good screen setter, I guess, but I don't know. I don't really know what the vision is. I think it's just like, oh, let me get a serviceable backup big that can finish plays, I guess, at the rim. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough, but I'll tell you who it'll be: Tyus Jones and Monte Morris.
Those are
They
big.
got they got Monte Morris, and he has that chemistry with Plumlee from Denver. So if you're looking on the bright side there, it's like, hey, at least I'm familiar with this guy.
I thought the Tyus Jones pickup was huge for Phoenix, and I was like, wait a second, they're a second apron team. How can they get Tyus Jones? Something's not right here. They're deeper than I thought going through the roster, getting ready for Wednesday night. And just having Tyus Jones I know you were probably against all the guys complaining about needing a point guard in Phoenix, just like you were with the Clippers. But if you can get Tyus Jones, there's nothing wrong with that. He can help them.
You're so right. Like, on principle, and I think it's like the same with Harden. Like, on principle, yes, I'm like, don't need a point guard. Your wings can suck it up. Kawhi, PG, KD, Book. You can make enough plays. The Suns and Clippers, I think that's why I've covered them. Like, it's because they're just so synonymous. It just the play style, it kind of fits together. But you're right. Like, if you can get Tyus Jones for what, $3 million? Oh my God! Like, he's worth $18 million a year, and you get him for $3 million. It's pretty crazy.
Where's Monte Morris at with his health? Because I know he had that quadricep injury a couple of seasons ago. He hasn't played, I don't think, more than 40 games combined the last 2 seasons.
He was not effective for Minnesota. I believe he had something going on in the playoffs that he was dealing with. Don't quote me on that, but you don't hear anything about injury right now. He looks good. Same with Brad. Same with Brad Bill. Like, you think that he's injury prone, and he probably is injury prone, but this is the first time. I know you've heard this a million times. Like, this is the first time in a while he's came into camp like with nothing going on. So knock on some wood. But
is he bouncy? Does he have some burst, some explosiveness? What is he, 31,
Monte?
32? No, Bradley Beal now.
Brad's quick. He's quicker in like, you'll see this tomorrow. He's really quick in person and getting from north to south. I think it's just his decision making when he's going north to south and wanting to fall into the pull-up jumper instead of getting all the way to the rim. It's like, come on, Brad, like, get all the way there and then either make a play or try to finish and get to the line. But I wouldn't say bouncy. I don't know if he's ever been really bouncy, but he's faster than I remember.
Okay. I think you did a story on Ryan Dunn, or you were going to, after he dragged the 20-point game, against Denver in the preseason, I think it was. And he's been putting up a lot of 3-pointers, and he only took 35 in college with Virginia, and he surpassed that like in the preseason for the Suns. What's going on with this player? We know he can play defense, but is he having like that leap offensively also?
I wouldn't say capital L leap. I wouldn't. But he got with Damian Lillard's trainer, which is also Nurkic's trainer. I guess that the Portland connection, but that trainer is based here in Phoenix now. and his name's Phil Beckner, and they really reworked his shot. I mean, it looks faster, cleaner. Doesn't look too different, but I would say it's a quicker release than it was in college. So I don't know. I'm no shooting expert, shooting coach. I don't think anyone listening to this probably is, but it's like,
Hey, Devin Booker said ball.
Yeah, I guess, but I don't know. That was about. Hey, actually, I didn't know ball at that point because I thought they were going to win I thought they were going to the finals with KD. So
some have wondered. You're not a Phoenix Suns fan. You don't just cover the Phoenix Suns.
No.
Why does everyone think that you are a Phoenix Suns fan, Shane?
Well, I think I was probably the only one that picked them to go to the finals 2 years in a row after they got KD, and they didn't.
I believe you said they were entering their Spurs era or something like that.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I'm putting a bounty on that tweet from Shane. Okay, I swear.
Please find it. Find that one. All right, so we all know Matt Moore, right? So
he's been on the show. We had a real heated debate.
I gotta watch that. I didn't miss that. I gotta watch that. So right after, do you remember the game where they got KD and then they played that weekend against Dallas and went in and beat them in Dallas? And I was like, no one's touching this team in the West. And he was like, can we at least see them play first? and he was right on that in terms of they lost to Denver. They could not stop Denver in that second round series after they beat the Clips. And it's just like, I didn't see that coming. I thought they were going to just blitz everyone. So I would say I've matured since February 2023. I would say I've learned to pump the brakes a little bit. That's why I'm not putting Phoenix in the finals this year. I think they'll make the West Finals, but we'll see.
Was it because of your love for the point guard, CP3, that kind of had you following and reporting more on the Phoenix Suns?
Originally, and I would say coming here on Father's Day in 2021, you know what was happening that day, right? Conference Finals, Game 1, Clippers, Suns, and seeing the environment. It's one of the loudest buildings I've ever been in that day in particular. And then the day where the Valley Oop happened, where I guess it was Ayton caught it over Zoo. That was a really fun team. And you're right, like point guard Chris Paul is probably my favorite player outside of Kobe all time. So, that's what started it. But I got to say, like moving here, it's been awesome. Like it's a fun team to cover media wise because whatever you really want, you can kind of get. You can't really say that about other teams around the league. So, but you're right. Not a Suns fan. I'm realistic about them.
Now, I am the receipt master here, Shane.
Here we go. Please.
And I don't want to do this in real time to you. And you're such a wonderful guest here. You're such a wonderful guest. Not exactly, at least from what I've seen so far. But I do see their offensive styles are a bit different, but can definitely sense some 2013, 2014 Spurs vibes from the Phoenix Suns. Make the finals, sitting in the driver's seat as heavy favorites, experience the heartbreak, and come back the following season ready to destroy everyone.
Yeah.
November 27, 2021. Now, they did get destroyed in that Game 7 that next year by the Dallas Mavericks here. But I'm seeing some other comparisons here.
To that particular 2014 Spurs team.
Yes. Okay. That's different
what I thought you meant?
Spurs era.
I thought you meant they were going to go on this dynastic run and win like 5 titles. Like, no.
Well, let me keep digging here, and I might be able to find something about that. Okay, I'll let go of that for now. Why do people hate on Devin Booker so much? Like, I'm a big fan. Yeah. I understand.
Are you?
I am, but I have ears. I can see what people are saying about him all the time. They think he's a punk. They think he's a pretty boy. That's not his fault that he's good looking and got the nose fixed after it was broken. It looks, was still dating Kendall Jenner and all that.
Was that Pat Bev?
Was it Pat Bev? Was it in the series? It was in the series. I think it was. Yeah.
Pat Bev.
They tried to ain't pretty no more to quote Raging Bull, but there's a lot of, I think, undue hate coming towards him. Do you sense this? And has he brought it upon himself?
And I'm not just saying this because I'm in the market. Like, I genuinely don't know one thing that he's done that has warranted this hate. And if the answer is, go back and forth and call Paul George a B word, like, don't other people also hate Paul George? So why does Devin get the hate there? Like,
Turns out a lot of Clippers fans aren't too fond of him right now.
Hey, Devin, what's that meme? Devin Booker and Clippers fans handshake. So
Oh, you're right.
We got to do that. But I guess off the top of my head, it's just that I think he tries to act a little. I think he's a little bit too mature than you would expect from a guy that was 25, 26, 27 when he started generating that hate. And he's always been called like an old soul. Like even KD calls him that. So I don't know. But you remember the game where he and Luka? It was the game I was talking about. They were talking trash in Dallas
with the Luka meme where he's looking over at him. That game?
No, that's the game 7 where they got embarrassed. I'm talking about when the game they got Kevin Durant and they beat Dallas in Dallas, and there was some trash talk between Book and Luka, and people always side with Luka on that. I don't know. I can't give you a good answer. And so it's the only time I've ever been kind of speechless on a question because I don't know why he gets so much hate.
People also hate on Luka Doncic too. And I kind of get the ref stuff and the complaining and people don't like that, but I don't really care. None of that overrides the greatness of either of those two players for me. I like watching basketball, you know.
All right. PG's he was my guy. I guess he is I covered him in 2014 with the Pacers. Like, I thought it was so super corny when Devin commented on PG's post that day on Instagram. Was like, you tried it whenever on the podcast. You remember that? This is last year.
Yeah.
It's like, you didn't need to do that. Like, so I can understand some hate coming like for that. Like you didn't need to, they weren't talking about you. Like,
that the Klay Thompson situation and all that.
Yeah.
More specifically about tomorrow night, where do you think the Suns have a clear-cut advantage that the Clippers have to be concerned about besides maybe just over-the-top hot jump shooting?
I was about to say just like I was about to say there could be like this could be a game where Brad Beal goes off or Book hits 7-8 threes because he starts to uncork them a little bit. I don't think they'd have a clear advantage. I mean, Tyus Jones has been in a groove. He's looking really good. He's not turning the ball over. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. Well, I mean, if Grayson Allen, that to me is a big deal. The fact that he's going to be like their sixth man now. I'm not going to pick him to win sixth man of the year, but because that might be Dante DiVincenzo, would be my guess. But I think having that kind of level of movement shooter off the bench, Clippers probably don't have that. So
where can the Clippers, because I think Clipper Nation has always felt like they've matched up very well against this, I almost said San Antonio, against the Suns, as we get away from that comparison. But they just haven't had all their guys available when they've needed them most against them in the playoffs. But maybe they have overperformed anyways at times. And the Suns are a little bit smaller, at least with Devin Booker and Bradley Beal. So the Clippers have, a couple of guys in the starting lineup with Terrence Mann, with Derrick Jones Jr. Yeah, still have to figure out how to cover KD. So it does mean that somebody's going to be guarding Bradley Beal or Devin Booker that isn't Terrence Mann or Derrick Jones Jr. They might be able to get loose there against James Harden or against Norman Powell. Do you like seeing Norman Powell being the guy to soak up the minutes and make up for lost scoring from Paul George and Coach Lue making that move without Kawhi right now?
Usually I would say that I like that kind of microwave score off the bench because we know what Norm is capable of. But I don't know. You do have to soak up the minutes and the possessions and the usage. So you do. I'm always a big proponent. You do what's necessary. Lineups be damned. Like positions be damned. I don't care about positions at all. Like whatever's needed. So yeah, I think I like it. And now I don't know. Like Terrence. I guess you would say this is a wild thing to say, but he's the most important player, not named Kawhi Leonard, on this roster. Like if I think he's got to be really, really good this year. He's got to do even more.
No, that's facts. I mean, he just got his extension like Ivica Zubac. And he is somebody that a couple of years ago in the 2021 playoffs has the big game, 39 points to get them to the Western Conference Finals for the first time in franchise history. And at that point, the feeling was, Terrence Mann's ceiling could be way up there, and we have no idea right now. But the thing was, he was making a ton of open shots because they were guarding other guys. All those 3-pointers were wide open shots. And some have felt like he hasn't developed much further than that, or he hit his ceiling and it might have been a little bit lower. Do you feel like he's just, he's 28, he just turned 28 a couple of days ago. This is who he is as a player at this point. He doesn't have a ton of room for growth.
I think it's who he is skill wise. I don't think you're going to develop much more, but it's can you continue the efficiency that you have with more volume? The volume's got to go up, and not even shot attempts, just overall ball in my hands, make a decision. That could be score or playmaker or drawing the defense to you. I need more Terrence Mann drives. I need more of him as the short roll. I'm going to screen for James, screen for Kawhi, receive the ball near the nail and make a play. I want more of that. Ball in his hands more. I mean, the shooting, man, like it was really a big deal that he hit 40% of his threes during that 21 season. And that's when Sean Fine, one of the assistant trainers, like really took his shooting to the next level. Let's test it out some more. I mean, just more reps. And I don't know if Ty's like afraid to give him that, or it just hasn't been there hasn't been room for it with Paul, James, and Kawhi. But
I think it's honestly on Terrence. He doesn't
Yeah.
when he went into that shooting slump to start last season, he shied away from taking shots from the outside.
Yeah.
He does that. He's not aggressive enough.
Even if you're gonna
No, go ahead.
even if you're gonna be gun shy there, like, okay, well, that doesn't mean pass it. Like make a play, like attack that gap and get downhill. I want more downhill.
He has finished top 3 of all guards when it comes to field goal percentage at the rim the last 2 seasons. Only Luka was better than him
The
last
volume
season.
was criminally low. It's like,
Yeah, it definitely needs to go up here. So, in going more big picture, and if you guys have questions for Shane Young here, we will get to them. But I want to pull up what you posted just a few hours ago here with overall record watch. And I think you have, I don't know, raised a few eyebrows with some of your picks here, namely Golden State, ending up 4th in the West with 51 wins. I've felt like that's a team the Clippers could be competing with in the play-in all year.
They might.
I know it's heavily dependent on Steph Curry, and I think he played 75 games or whatever it was last season. But why are you higher on Golden State than most?
Love DeAnthony Melton. Love Buddy Hield for them because, let's be honest, Clay wasn't giving them much defensively either. So if you can replace that with the same don't kill me, Clay fans, but the same tier of a shooter right now, like you do it. And man, like Pajemski just impressed me. Like he always impresses me every time I watch him. Granted, Summer League, I was there in person, and that's not much competition. I understand, but like he just always makes the right play. And I told this to Justin Russo earlier. I was like, this is the year that Draymond Green becomes an adult. This is the year that Draymond doesn't miss a segment of games.
That's bold.
For something stupid. And then Justin, of course, sends me back Draymond's birthday and age. He's like, if it hasn't happened now, buddy, it's not happening. I'm like great, like fair point. But if Steph and Dre are playing and Wiggins is, let's just say Wiggins is 60% better, 70% better than he was last year. Like last year was awful for Andrew Wiggins. So kind of just banking on the last year being the anomaly, that makes sense.
Some guys progressing back to the mean a little bit. That makes sense. Andrew Wiggins can't be much worse than he has been. So the Clippers bring in, mentioned Klay Thompson there. They bring in Derrick Jones Jr. from Dallas. He shot, again, 37% during that playoff run. I think it was like 63 pointers taken from the outside, something like that. It was actually much higher before it kind of cratered in the finals. He didn't shoot well against Boston. How much do you like that move for the Clippers? And also, how much could that hurt the Dallas Mavericks, who you currently have in the 6th spot in the West?
Yeah, I'll just go on Dallas really quick. I think that's part of the reason. I'm very, very nervous about their defense. You're going to have a lot of minutes, like a lot, with Clay, Luka, and Kyrie. Now, if one gets hurt, then you replace those minutes with maybe a better defender, their defense could take a bump and or it could go up, and their offense might take a little hit. So I'm just all about a team being balanced. I think Dallas won't be as good defensively as they were post deadline. They were like second in the NBA post deadline last year in defense. Like I'm not a believer in that. For the Clippers, I think Ty Lue's gonna love him, like a guy that you can just like a top tier wing. You just throw on anyone out there. That's insurance for Kawhi. Now, of course, like that's just on the defensive end, but I think Derrick Jones is every bit as capable on that end that current level and current age Kawhi is. So I think it'll be fine. He'll force more turnovers for the Clippers, and that's a win.
We're looking at Shane Young's Western Conference projections here for the 24-25 season. No issue with your top two. I have the Thunder. I had them winning 60 games before Hartenstein went down, so I like your 59 down or 59 number now. That makes sense.
Am I too high on Minnesota?
It depends on how you feel about the trade, obviously. I don't think you are. Like, I think they were the number one defense last year. They had the number one defensive rating by a mile. Like, I don't think they're going to fall off that much where they're somehow out of the top 5 on the defensive end. They finished 17th on the offensive end last season. They can definitely improve there. And their best player and one of the best players in the league in Anthony Edwards is 23 and getting better. So DiVincenzo to me and getting Julius Randle, depending on how he fits, I don't know if it could be a lateral move or make them slightly worse at most, right? They're not going to be significantly worse. That's how I see them. So I like them being number 2.
Yeah, lateral move. I think they won 57 last year, maybe. But I don't feel comfortable saying they got better because of the trade. I think people that are saying that are Cat haters. They're Karl Towns haters because there's no way that dude is too talented. So the very rare win-win for both sides, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I'm with you there. The Denver Nuggets, you concerned about Jamal Murray's health? You got him 4th right now, tied for 4th.
He looks pudgy. I'm not sure that now you can play your way into shape. We've seen literally James Harden do that many times, right?
Not this year, baby. He's in the best shape he's been in.
He looks awesome. He looks awesome. I think I'm just so concerned that they will not have enough shooting. And I don't want to be this broken record that only cares about shooting in basketball. I know there's other components of that, but I got to tell you, man, it matters. It matters. And name me a player outside of Michael Porter Jr., Julian Strawther, or Jamal when he's healthy that's going to get up some shots and be efficient. I don't see it. And the more minutes with Russ and Aaron Gordon and Jokic together on the court, I hate that. I just absolutely hate it. So 51 might be high.
Okay. Memphis being at 47 wins, some would be like, that's crazy. They had like 22 last season. Well, they've had all these injuries, and the last 2 times they were healthy, they were top 3 in the West. Yeah. So I'd actually think this may be too low, 47 wins, if they get good health this season. I know the team's constructed differently. They're not as deep as they probably were a couple years ago, but the Memphis Grizzlies are a team to me also with high variance where I could see them being a top 4 team, or I could see them being in the play-in.
What you just said, though, like if they get good health, they could be in the 50s. I don't think this team has the capability to get good health. There's always something. It feels like the Clippers. There's always something happening.
You don't have to do that, Shane. Why would you do that?
Kill me. I think in the way Ja plays, I'm sorry, that dude's not playing 70 games this year. The way he plays, it's not out of control. He's very much in control, but it's reckless sometimes. So
yeah, Lakers in the 8th spot.
They were tough. That's the toughest team for me. It's the Lakers this year. Toughest
because I don't think they're getting 70 games from AD and LeBron like they did last year. But they also, I think, have a better coach that could help them win 5 more games. They have some young guys who can get better in Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura in the starting lineup. I don't really know where to put them either. Like if they get 70 games again from AD and LeBron, I think they're winning 50 games. I just don't know if that can happen.
Yeah. And I feel queasy that they are going to be relying on Max Christie and guys at the lower end of the bench this year. It's like, man, especially if LeBron and AD have to miss games, then those guys take a step forward in responsibility. It could get dicey, could get scary in the West. And man, JJ, like I love him as a coach. I want him to be the coach for forever. But like, talk about pressure immediately. Like, what if they start like 7-10? Like, you're gonna start hearing some stuff. I don't know. But
They get smoked tonight while trying to get Bronny that photo op with his
is it
his
happening
father.
tonight?
Oh, it's happening tonight. It sounds like as long as the game is competitive, meaning they can't put him in if they're getting blown out or down by 10 after the first quarter. But yeah, they're going to try to get this out of the way and then send him to the G League, most likely, unless he shines all of a sudden.
Listen to what you just said, though. Like, it can only happen if it's like, all right, third quarter, it's a 5-point game. You're down 5. Are you seriously, as a serious organization, putting Bronny in the game?
I think it has to be first half. It's going to be end of the first or early second quarter, I think it will be, is my guess. And the minutes have been pretty damn rough if you look at net rating with him on the court so far in Summer League and preseason. Yeah, he's at a minus infinity. The Sacramento Kings, you have in the exact same spot. They're finishing ninth. 45 wins is one less than they won last season. They have DeMar DeRozan. Is this just a victim of the Western Conference?
Yeah, cannibalizing each other. That's what these teams will be doing. So I can't stress this enough, and I need to put this in my Twitter bio. I genuinely believe that. Like, just because your team wins a few fewer games doesn't mean you're a worse team. It doesn't mean that. Yeah. Like, you can be the same caliber team. So I think I don't have much to say on Sacramento, but like with Sabonis, you have a floor with Sabonis. As long as he's there, you're going to be a pretty good team.
Yeah, had some ridiculous numbers, historic numbers last season. Yeah. New Orleans is interesting to me. They're a high variance team where if things come together, if Zion can play 60 plus games this season, he looks to be in better shape. Who knows what happens with Brandon Ingram, but they bring in DeJounte Murray. Like, I wouldn't be shocked. They ended up with a top 10 defense last season. They might have been top 5, actually. I should double check on that. They were really good on that end, surprisingly. They were 6th defensively last season. Offensively, they were 11th. So I think they were better than people realized by the way they went out in the playoffs and how bad Brandon Ingram was in that series. DeJounte Murray's there, as I mentioned. This is a team to me with a lot of potential, but what do you think happens with Brandon Ingram? Like, he has to be moved at some point, right? But they're not going to get that much for him.
Yeah, I think you might have to just bite the bullet and just realize it's a sunk cost. Like, just get what you can. Get what you can, man. You don't want it to be to reach a point where you get nothing. So, and also you don't want to pay the guy. So if you don't want to pay the guy, get rid of him. Quit dating if you're not willing to get married. That's what you should do.
Okay, so now the Clippers. You have them 11th. That means, as you mentioned, it would break their streak of 13 straight seasons with a winning record.
Hope I'm wrong.
Like, you could be right. You could be a little bit wrong. You could be. I see them anywhere between 37 and 45 wins, depending on how things break out with Kawhi Leonard. That's their variance. It's just how many games you're getting from Kawhi. So I think it's fair to say 11th. I know some people in here will be upset about that, but I think it's a realistic number. What I like is you have them ahead of Houston, and they have a real big pick swap situation with the Oklahoma City Thunder, who can choose the lower draft pick between those two teams, as long as Houston's isn't in the top 10 because it's top 10 pick protected. So if the Clippers, they really need to finish in front of Houston to hold on to their pick, basically, is what I'm saying. There are no ifs, ands, or bones about it. They need to finish ahead of the Houston Rockets, and at the same time, hope Houston's not too bad where they end up getting a top 10 pick, because then it's protected and OKC can't take theirs, so therefore they take the Clippers.
I didn't know about all those dynamics, so I appreciate you laying that out.
They play each other 4 times. There's a lot of intrigue for Clipper Nation with this because they've had so many few first-round picks, of course, recently since the SGA trade. So everybody's like, we really got to stay ahead of Houston this season. But I don't know. Houston finally signed their guys, and I think that's a really interesting deal with Jalen Green because it's a 2+1, basically. Mm-hmm. And Şengün is a very good player, but neither guy is really meshed on the court with one another. They kind of have thrived when one is out. Mm-hmm. They have to figure that part of it out. I think their coaching staff's really good. I think they could surprise people and end up finishing with 45 wins if all things go their way, honestly.
Yeah, this could be a team that's just maybe a little bit of a victim of, oh, the Warriors got a little bit better, the Suns got a little bit better. Memphis is literally 20 wins better. So where do those wins come from? Guess what? You're in the same division. Maybe Memphis beats them a couple more times. So I think Houston's a good poster child for what I was just telling you. Like, just because a team wins 3 fewer games doesn't mean they're worse. Like I think they'll be the same team. And if Jalen Green matures a little bit more than he was, and takes better shots, and they learn how to play together a little bit better. I'm not saying they were bad, but you're right. Like Şengün and Jalen Green thrived when one was off and one was on. So you're right.
They just have some interesting players with Cam Whitmore. They draft Reed Shepherd. Like
Tari
they
Eason
have
is back from injury, I think. So
some high upside guys. Can they get them all to click though with so many agendas you would think from young players that are trying to show out and show that they deserve more minutes? Can they all have more defined roles?
what do you think? What about Reed Shepherd? Like someone asked me if is he gonna like end up starting. I'm like, dude, they have so many guards. They have so many guards that it's hard for me to see that he's just gonna become the starter right away. I don't know.
Yeah, that's probably like he would have to break through with a couple of really big performances early on where you
Yeah.
just can't help but keep him on the floor because he could also be a huge fan favorite with some of the flashy plays and the highlights. And that might be enough just to boost morale with a team like that. So I don't need to worry too much about the Spurs in San Antonio. And Wemby's amazing, but I think they'll probably miss the
Point
play-in.
God. Point
The
God.
point guard's there, but 50 games. Not worried about Utah, even though they shouldn't tank with Lauri Markkanen. Like they've gotten off these hot starts the last couple of seasons
I
and then
know.
faded. If they get off to a hot start this time, they may not fade quite as much. And then Portland, that's a team you have to beat if you get them. When you
I'm
get
calling
them.
this the final ride for Chauncey. Like this is his last year coaching there. It has to be. I mean, like if he underperform or not underperforms considering the roster, but if that's his record this year, like
Yeah.
come on, man, we got to do something else.
Scoot has not looked great from what I've seen so far. I know he turned a little bit of a corner the second half of last season, but I don't know. I thought he should have been the pick over Bradley or Brandon Miller, I should say. But now it's like, I don't know. Maybe Jordan got one right for once
Like
in Charlotte.
Charlotte did something right. And
Yeah.
I don't know if he was even, I don't know, was that his pick? I don't even know if he cared.
I think maybe some influence. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe it's because he didn't care. They actually
Yeah.
chose right. So I know you got Boston winning the whole damn thing again,
Yeah.
right? But who's coming out of the West?
Okay, see, there's no like, all right, if you would have told me like Cat was still in Minnesota and they just ran it back, I would pick them. I would. I think they were ready. But Julius Randle in the playoff setting, I'm out. I'm out. Like, give me the loaded Thunder. Jalen Williams taking another leap forward.
Yeah.
Chet's gonna be even better. Oh, you're not a Jalen Williams guy?
No. I'm like, yeah, the
Oh,
Thunder.
okay. Yeah.
It's a longing thing because
Yeah.
the Clippers have to watch this happen now with SGA. He's
Oh,
probably going to win. I'm with you. He's getting MVP.
yeah. Oh yeah, MVP. There's too many things working for him to get MVP that if he doesn't, it's a disappointment. So
Yeah, like because I think people realize now, we didn't think hard enough last year about him getting MVP. Maybe we were still on the Jokic train. There could be some Jokic fatigue. Luka could still be in the mix if he puts up crazy numbers. But if you're at the top of the West and you are the driving force of that squad that
I
is
know.
running roughshod, you probably should win MVP, best player, best
Well,
team.
I'm glad you just said that because I was gonna say like if Shea does win MVP and the reasoning that you hear, the collective reasoning is that best player, best team, Jason Tatum has to be pissed off about what just like why wasn't I didn't have him in my top 3, so I'm guilty too. Why wasn't he even considered for MVP last year?
Because the same reason that Jaylen Brown won Finals MVP. I know it's a regular season award, but I think there's this feeling around the Boston Celtics that not only are they super talented and built the right way and play the analytics, but the whole is also greater than the sum of its parts. Like they bring out the best in one another. And I felt like after they won the NBA Finals, I'm like, I don't think they had a top 7 player on the team. And they just won
Yeah.
the NBA Finals. I think you can make that argument with them, but they're just good enough, and their 2 top stars are still young enough and getting much better. The stats didn't wow you enough with Jason Tatum to separate him from, I think, other guys on the team and why they were doing so good with Kristaps, who, by the way, didn't even have to play much in the finals for them to take out Dallas in 5. Like I'm with you. Like I think they're going to run it back, and they're just in that sweet spot where they actually have young guys who are getting better and have already won and have championship pedigree.
Since we're on a Clippers pod, and you're going to talk about Boston, I have to tell you, like, it just happened last year, but the most impressive game, the one time I've been in an arena and my jaw was dropped was Clippers at Celtics when they went in there and beat the bejesus out of them, man.
I know. That was that moment where we all said the Clippers are the best team in the league. It might be by a significant margin. Just good health, please. Just good health for once. And it didn't happen again. And now it's the end of an era. And I don't know. This is the James Harden era right now, it feels like. Because
it's the Steve Ballmer era.
Just Steve Ballmer era, Intuit Dome era. Yeah. The thing I always say to cope in some ways, but it is true, is in a lot of ways, the Clippers have only been around for 10 years. They've only been a legitimate franchise since Steve Ballmer took over. Before that, they had an owner who was actively working against them, like no owner in sports. Like, it was that bad. So if you look at it from that perspective, they have succeeded in many ways and have shown a lot of growth. And the best is still yet to come. And that first championship will happen at Intuit Dome, where Shane and I will be tomorrow night for the Clippers taking on the Phoenix Suns. He is the great Shane Young, as you guys just experienced here. Follow him on Twitter is it just Shane Young now? I was just bringing it up.
Young NBA.
Young NBA. I mean, I just tried to expose the Spurs thing. Instead, it backfired on me. You were right. But he writes for ForbeSports, and his latest is Inside the Intuit Dome, where basketball meets technology and entertainment. It is a great read. He's a great follow. Say you love him in the comment section. Say you love him. Say you love Shane Young. Shane, thanks for doing this.
Appreciate you, Adam. I'll talk to you soon, man.
All right. For Shane Young, I'm Adam Osland. This has been another edition of Clippers Talk Live. The NBA is back. We're tipping off. Oh.